Just a few days ago, we talked about possibly trading Bojan Bogdanovic and talked about the reports coming out about the Pistons possibly trading him. Today, we got more reports about another player the Pistons may possibly trade, and his third-year player, Saddiq Bey. We're going to talk about all those reports in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Kahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Kahil. I want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So we have a podcast today that's, I think it's going to be pretty stacked, and we may spend a very long time talking about Saddiq Bey. We might spend 2 full segments talking about Saddiq Bey. But real quick, just want to give you guys an update. We did hear a little bit from Troy Weaver on Cade Cunningham and his decision to get surgery. And tomorrow on Thursday's podcast, Wednesday we're recording, but on Thursday's podcast, you are going to be hearing us talk with my good friend Sham, who is in the medical field. He's going to be talking with us about the decision to get surgery. It was confirmed that it was a stress fracture. He's going to take us into all of that, describe all of that to us, tell us all about everything we need to know, et cetera, et cetera. So stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and just get right into this, man. So a few days ago, I think even like the last podcast, I think it might have been, we talked about Bojan Bogdanovic and how the reports were coming out that the Pistons are getting a ton of calls from many, many teams trying to go after Bojan this season and really want him on their teams. And we spent a whole episode basically talking about that. A day goes by, and now we hear more rumors coming out, except this time it's about Saddiq Bey. And these ones came from an Athletic article from James Edwards, the Detroit Pistons beat writer. And after he dropped this piece, we started to get a little more rumors after this, talking about several teams being interested. One of them was the Miami Heat. One of them was the Dallas Mavericks. We heard a bunch of stuff. But I want to read you guys exactly what was said in the Athletic article. I don't want no confusion. I don't want to speak for anything. I'm just going to read you exactly what's said right here. It's 2 paragraphs, so stay with me here. I'm going to read you exactly what it says. So, quote, per league sources, the Pistons have answered calls and had discussions about Bey, the third-year forward who has had an up-and-down season. The sense I've received, and when he says I've, obviously it's James talking here. The sense I've received when talking to people around the league is that the 23-year-old may be gettable at the right price, though the right price is unclear. Bey, who is shooting a career-low 29% from 3, was moved to the bench role last month as Casey saw a better scoring balance between his 2 units while trying to improve the starting group defensively. Bey has taken strides in interior scorer this season and is even averaging a career-best 4.3 free throws attempts per game, one of several small improvements from the Villanova product. But his three-point shooting woes to date have really clouded his overall progression in year 3. Additionally, the Pistons' desire to play with 2 natural big men has impacted Bey, who is probably best suited as a power forward on the defensive end. So, what does this mean to me? Does this mean that I think the Pistons are actively shopping Saddiq Bey? No, I don't think they're actively out there asking teams, hey, what can you give us for him? I think teams are aware of what's going on with Saddiq over here. They've seen him get moved to the bench. They've seen him kind of stall with some of his development, and they're interested in him. And the Pistons aren't shutting it down and are letting them know that he is gettable. You can get him. Are we actively trying to get rid of him? Probably not. But can you get him from us? Can you give us an offer that we will take? Yes. This is the problem. So, I want to talk first about Saddiq Bey's trade value and what I think about the idea of trading Saddiq. And then the second segment, I want to kind of get into why Saddiq went from being, probably considered the best asset from the 2020 draft for the Pistons to where he is now. That is of a player who is gettable and has been moved to the bench. And a lot of people are thinking will be traded at some point. A lot of fans I'm seeing are starting to turn on Saddiq Bey. So I want to talk about his progression as a player that's gotten him here in the second segment. But first, I just want to talk about his trade value real quick. I don't think that the Pistons should trade Saddiq Bey, and here's why. He's playing his maybe not he's playing. His value is as low as it probably has ever been at this point right now. We are now going on 2 seasons right now of him shooting below average from deep. He's under 50% from 2-point range. He's been moved to the bench. And he's a net negative defender. Teams are not going to be forking up a ton of assets for that. And the problem is that Saddiq provides more value to the Pistons. His value is he's a young guy for the Pistons that they believe can develop, and they're going to help try, get him to that next developmental step. But that teams aren't looking the way trade value works. Other teams are not looking at Saddiq Bey as, oh, we think he could be something in the future, so let's give him let's throw a bunch at the Pistons because we believe in his future. No, trade value works off what you're doing right now. Teams are interested in him because I'm sure they think that he can get better than this, and that they believe that he will be better than this. But teams are interested in him right now because they believe they can get him for cheap now. What he's put on the product is not something they have to give a lot for, so they think that they can go after Saddiq Bey and his value right now because of what he's put on the floor. They can get away with taking him for cheap, and then he'll show out for them in the future. He'll eventually develop for them in the future, and it'll be worth it. They're not going to be paying on his potential. They're going to be paying on what he's shown. And what he's shown, I'm not sure is even worth a first-round draft pick. We're going to get into more of why that is in the second segment. I'll dive into that because I know some of you guys may be saying, oh, cool, he was the 19th pick in the 2020 draft, and he's probably going top 10 in a redraft. Well, how could he not be worth a first-round pick from a team in the trade market? We'll talk about that in the next segment. But that's why I would not trade Saddiq Bey. If his value was a little bit higher, I would consider it. You guys have heard me on the podcast multiple times over the past few years say that I think Saddiq Bey would be the main piece in a trade for the Pistons when they eventually go after like a disgruntled star, an all-star that wants out, something like that. I thought Saddiq would be a main piece. Where he's at right now, he's nowhere near worth a main piece. He's not netting the Pistons anything. So why give him up for cheap? Why give him up for dirt when it would make more sense just to hold on to him and hope he gets better? And then if you want to try deal him when he gets better and try deal him when his value is a little higher, okay, then go ahead and do that. Or you can obviously just keep him if he gets better. You can go either route. But right now the Pistons are kind of in a corner where he hasn't gotten better. He's in this this gray area that we've talked about many times in the podcast, where it's hard to evaluate what exactly he's going to contribute to winning basketball in the future. And teams are going to try to get a sneak one on the Pistons. And the Pistons, I don't think, obviously, it doesn't sound like they're going to let that happen. They're letting teams know that there is a price you can meet, but we're not going below that price. I doubt teams will want to get to the price that they're probably asking for. I have to assume they're asking for at least a first-round unprotected pick. I don't think Saddiq Bey is worth that. I don't think he's even close to worth that right now. So do I think Saddiq Bey will get traded this season? I do not. I don't think it's going to work out unless a team actually does fork out a really good offer for a guy that they believe in the future of. Then I could maybe see it. But they're not at the point where they should just be giving him up for free. They're not at a point where they should just be giving him up for cheap. They just need to get him off the book so quickly because, they don't want to pay him or anything. I don't think they're at that point with Saddiq Bey. They shouldn't be any rush to move him. Could I see him being moved in the offseason? Yes. Now in the offseason, I do think there's a chance he may actually get moved. But during the season, I don't think it makes any sense to. I don't think teams are going to be willing to give up anything of value for Saddiq. So that's where I stand with trading Saddiq. But moving forward into the next segment, I want to talk about why his value is so low, the player that he has become, and why it's so hard to see, or why it's harder to evaluate and try to figure out how exactly he can contribute to winning basketball, and why he went from the best asset of the 2020 NBA draft for the Pistons to now a guy who is gettable and hasn't gotten much better. I want to talk about that when we come back. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or even prom. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get to point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits into your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions and exclusions apply. Again, you can check this out at Turo.com. All terms and conditions and exclusions apply. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. forget the boring cars, forget the boring rental cars, and find your special drive at Turo.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so we've heard about Saddiq Bey possibly being in trade talks. We got the article that's come out. We got a bunch of other rumors coming out about teams that are interested in Saddiq Bey. So how did we get here? How did we get to the point where Saddiq Bey, who, again, at one point was considered by Pistons fans, I saw a lot of you guys call him the next Paul George. A lot of people felt like he was the best asset for the 2020 NBA draft for the Pistons. How did he get from there to where people are starting to feel okay with letting him go? I've seen many fans, many of you guys in the comment section, many of you guys on Twitter, many of you guys in the community talking about possibly moving on from Saddiq. And how is he gettable now for the Pistons, according to the reports? How have we gotten here? Well, the reason why we've gotten here is because of many, many reasons. The main reason, though, is his three-point shooting. This is something I tried telling you guys in the offseason about. And I really think that I don't think a lot of Pistons fans, and I can't blame them, a lot of Pistons fans are just, they don't have time to watch across the entire NBA. But I really think if you can, you should watch across the NBA. You should watch more than just Pistons basketball. Because a player of Saddiq's caliber, a guy who can, let's say, I want to try to stay as precise on this topic because I'm going to go all over the place. There's so many topics I want to hit, but I want to try to stay precise. So let's say a player like Saddiq, who has made some improvements from 2-point range, who has made some improvements in foul drawing, who has made some improvements at finishing. Those would be valuable if you are also a 3-point shooter and you're using those to chain off of your 3-point shooting. Where Saddiq's at with those two, with those improvements, are not high enough for him to not be a 3-point shooter. For example, I use this example all the time. I say, the guy I always come up with is like DeMar DeRozan. Now, it may not be the best example, but I think you guys get where I'm going with this. DeMar DeRozan does not shoot threes. He takes a lot of twos. But he is one of the best two-shot maker in the entire NBA. He's one of the best mid-range shooters in the entire NBA. He's one of the best finishers in the entire NBA. He's a freak athlete. He's a great playmaker. Like, if you're able to be elite at all those things, yeah, you can get away. You don't need to be a spot-up three-point shooter. If you're elite at those things, yes, you can be a primary initiator. You can be a primary scorer, and you won't need that other stuff. But when you are, I don't know, you say Saddiq is what? An average, maybe average to below average finisher. He went from being a poor finisher his rookie year, but he's worked his way all the way up, which is a big improvement for him. I don't want that to go out the window. It is a good improvement for him. But when you start taking that, aspect out of it and just start comparing it across the NBA, he's probably an average to maybe a below average finisher. He's probably an average, maybe a slightly above average foul drawer, which is fine. He's a below average to poor playmaker with the ball in his hands. And he doesn't always make the right decisions. So if you're a contender, if you're a winning team and you're looking at him, you're thinking to yourself, okay, am I going to take the ball out of my best player's hands to put the ball in Saddiq's hands? Is he good enough for me to warrant taking those touches away from them to give to him? The answer right now is no. Is he a good enough spacer like he was his rookie year? If he shot the way he shot from his rookie year, combined with these improvements, then this wouldn't be a problem. Because instead of this being the main part of his game, it would be something that gets chained off of the main part of his game, which was his 3-point shooting. So if he had that, teams would look at him as, okay, he can be a guy who spaces the floor for us. He can catch and shoot. He spreads the floor for us. And also, if a guy closes out too quickly on him, if a guy presses up on him from beyond the arc, he can make him pay off of that. But that's not going to be what we ask of him to do. He's primarily going to space the floor for us, and he'll be able, but he can also make things happen when guys get up in his grill. That's more valuable. But as of right now, Saddiq doesn't have that. His 3-point shooting has crashed. He's at 29%. That's Stanley Johnson type of shooting. Last year, he was at 34%. That's below average 3-point shooting. And like I said earlier, the other stuff that he's improved on has been big improvements for him, but across the NBA is not actually like elite or anything. Now, could he get there? Maybe. But right now, he's not that. You take that, combine with his drop-off in shooting, and also combine that with that he's a net negative defender. He's a tweener on defense. You don't know if he's better guarding fours. You don't know if he's better guarding threes. But either way, he's not good at guarding either of them. So you combine all those things together. You combine all of it together. And you get a player that is hard. It's hard to evaluate and see how can he contribute to winning basketball for a contending team. Because I'm going to say it again. Contenders are not going to take the ball out of their best player's hands to put it in Saddiq's hands. He's not that good at it yet. Maybe eventually could he? Yes. But as of right now, he's not at that point. So that's the biggest thing. His three-point shooting crashing and being where it's at right now has completely, and like James said in the article, it's clouded all his other improvements because his other improvements were not supposed to be his main skill. If you guys are following with what I'm saying. His other improvements were okay, he's a good three-point shooter. He's a really good three-point shooter. Now, if we can just improve some of these other things a little bit to where he can, counter his three-point shooting, now we have a real player. It was never supposed to be, he's a trash three-point shooter, but let's see him improve those other things a little bit and then he's a player. No, it was never supposed to be like that. That's not what everyone's idea was for him, but that's been the reality for him all last year and the first, how many games this year are we at now? The first 25 games this year. So that's the biggest issue with Saddiq right now. That's how we've gotten here. That's number one, by far the biggest thing. That's one, his shooting. Number two, his defense. You see across the league, if all kinds of teams, what they want are tall or long or strong, versatile, switchable wings. Saddiq is not that. He's not a very good defender. He's not a switchable defender. Heck, we don't even know what exactly is his best spot to defend because he hasn't been good guarding anything. So he's a bad defender right now, going into his third year. He's been a bad defender. And if you're going to have a bad defender on a winning team, if you're going to have a bad defender out there, they better be making up for it on the offensive end. They better be like a lights-out offensive player. And right now, Saddiq's not that. Saddiq's not a lights-out offensive player. So all of this is to explain why in the first segment, when I say, I don't know if he's even going to be able to net the Pistons in a first-round pick. I highly doubt it. And you guys may counter to me and say, why do you think that, Koo? It's because of this right here. It's because of everything I just outlined for you guys. Now, I want to make this clear, though, too. Does this mean this is what Saddiq is now? He'll never get better? Absolutely not. I'm sure many Pistons believe he's going to get better. I'm sure a lot of you guys think he's going to get better. Heck, I don't believe he's this bad of a shooter. I refuse to believe he's 29% three-point shooter. I refuse to believe that. He has to be a better shooter than that. There's no way he's just become this bad of a shooter. But no matter what we believe for his future, no matter what the Pistons believe for his future, no matter what you guys believe for his future, the problem is that's not what value is based off of. That's not what trade value is based off of. Trade value is based off what you've shown on the court. And sadly, what he's shown on the court is a below-average three-point shooter, a below-average defender, a poor defender, and a slightly average creator with the ball in his hands who's also a poor playmaker. Those kind of players aren't going to get you value. He's not going to net a ton of value on the open market. So that's why we're at a point where we're at with Saddiq, where he's gettable now because he struggled with all those things. And I guess the best way, I guess I didn't really hit on this point yet, but keeping all that in mind, that's why teams are looking at Saddiq. They're probably thinking the same thing we're thinking, that, fans like you who are listening are thinking, what the Pistons front office may be thinking. At least I hope they're thinking this. Or someone like me are thinking, his value is really low right now. He hasn't played well. The product he's put on the floor has made his value decrease, but we believe that that's not actually who he is. He will get better. So we're going to pounce on this. We're going to go try to steal him for cheap because we think that in the future, he'll be better than this. And we're going to take advantage of that opportunity. It's kind of, I don't want to say, it's actually, no, let me not say it's kind of like that. It's not really close to like this, but it's kind of the same concept with how the Pistons got Marvin Bagley. Now, it's not as bad as the situation with Marvin Bagley. No, I'm not trying to compare the situations with their individual teams, but the concept behind it is kind of the same. Marvin Bagley was a high overall pick. He had put off a bad product on the floor for the Kings. His value wasn't high at all. And the Pistons said, we can get him for cheap. We think he's better than what he's put on the floor. We're not going to overpay for him because his product hasn't shown us that. We're not going to overpay. I'd be stupid. We're going to get him for cheap. And then when he gets here, we think he's going to be much better than what we just gave up for him. And you could argue he has been. It's that kind of ideology that teams are looking at the Pistons with because of what Saddiq's put on the floor and how many people feel the same way I just described, that it's hard to evaluate how he can be a winning player the way he is right now. I'm sure, and the interest, the point that there's, or the fact that there's so many teams that are interested in him should show that probably the majority of the league feels the exact way I just said, that they feel like he's better than this, and that if they can get their hands on him, he'll get back to being this, great shooter. We think we can get him to be what he looked like he was going to be after his second, towards the kind of the second half of last year, his rookie season. And we think if we can just get that shooting back, combined with these other improvements, he can really be a steal for us for cheap. That's how we've gotten here. So I hope I've done a good job explaining how we got here, how we're at where we're at with Saddiq Bey. And that's exactly why I would not trade him right now, because I think he is better than this. And if you trade him right now, you'll be trading him for cheap. He has to be better than this. If he isn't better than this, then that's a bad news for the Pistons. That's honestly just bad news for the Pistons. And maybe the Pistons front office secretly thinks that. I'd like to think they don't, but who knows? I don't think he's this bad. I think he can get better as an outside shooter. He's not that bad of an outside shooter. I refuse to believe it. Do I think he can get better as a defender? Maybe not individually, but I think he could get better as a team defender if you put more effort into it, making the right rotations, being in the right spot, that kind of thing. I think he can do that. And I really do like the improvements he's made in drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line. I really do like that. Some of his finishing around the rim, I really do like that stuff. So that's, I think I did a good job explaining it. We could go on for hours and hours talking about this and going back and forth, but that's where we've gotten with Saddiq Bey. I don't think he'll be traded during the season, maybe during the offseason, but his best value is to the Pistons developing and getting better. His value on the trade market, I have to assume, is really low, and they should not move him unless they get a really good deal, which maybe a team suckers up and does it. Who knows? But I don't think that's going to be the case. Let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about this whole situation with Saddiq Bey. Do you guys think the Pistons should trade him? What do you guys think about how we've gotten here, the journey that we've taken with Saddiq Bey? Let me know all that in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka. I really do hope that I did a really good job. I think I did. I hope you guys completely understand and I did a good job of explaining everything, this whole situation, how we've gotten here. I really do. I hope I did that because I try to put a lot of effort into it. So hope you guys understand. When we come back, when we talk about Cade Cunningham, some of the things we heard from Troy Weaver in a little a little presser he did today at practice for the Pistons. We'll talk about that. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts as well, you can even find those at BetOnline.net. We're always the easiest and fastest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about their trends and action today. And if you head over to betonline.net, you click on that basketball tab, you will see they have the betting odds favorites for MVP, Sixth Man of the Year, Head Coach of the Year, Championship odds, Rookie of the Year, first pick in the draft odds, worst team in the league this year, best record in the league this year. All that stuff they got over at betonline.net. You just got to hit that basketball tab, head to the website today, or use your mobile device to learn more about their trends and action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. This segment's not going to be very long. We don't got much to say here. We did get some stuff, though, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. So there is a 5-minute video, I believe. I saw it on Twitter, a 5-minute video recording of what Troy Weaver said to the reporters and everything. I'm sure you could look it up on YouTube. I think Bally Sports Detroit might have it on their YouTube channel if you want to look it up and watch it for yourself. I believe you can find it over there. But I saw it just randomly tweeted on Twitter, and I watched it. So, obviously, Cade Cunningham has had season-ending surgery. Troy Weaver was asked if it is indeed season-ending, and he confirmed, yes, it will be season-ending. He highly doubts that Cade would get back before the season ends, and then also if it would even make sense to try to rush him back for the season. He did confirm that Cade will be out for the entire year. He also said that the team does not have an exact timetable on when Cade will be fully healthy or fully recovered, but they expect, or he expects as of right now, that he will be ready when the season's over and will have the full off season to train, get better, put on, maybe get stronger, all that stuff. He'll have his full off season is what they expect. That, shortly after the season ends, he will be back to full strength and be able to go out there, and have a full off season to train. So that's a very good idea. Something else that he said that it was, something that we saw reports of, but was really interesting to hear from him say. And to be honest with you, the way he said it, and this is me reading into it a little bit more, but the way he said it and the expression that he had kind of makes me think a little bit more into this. But what he said was he believes that this is something, or not believes, this is something Cade has been dealing with for quite a bit of time. Now, when I saw him say that, combined with like the reports we got earlier that this was something maybe that went back to the beginning of the year, all the way maybe into preseason, hearing him say that and the way he said it in the expression and everything, combined with what I just said, and then also some of you guys have actually sent me clips from last season. Now, I didn't put much stock into it. I'm not going to put in much stock into like a random clip from last year that's like 6 seconds long. I'm sure you could do that all the time. But with all this that was said in the reports we got, I went back to thinking about some of the clips you guys sent me from last year when Cade was on the bench with some ice on his shin, the same shin that he's getting surgery on. This makes me think that maybe this wasn't just something he was dealing with this season or in the preseason. I think this might have been something he was dealing with even last year going into the offseason. Because remember, that if you go back and you read the James Edwards article when he had the doctor on, the doctor said this is the kind of injury that comes up, goes down, then comes back again if you take some rest, and then comes back again. Like it's something that goes up and down you're constantly dealing with until you get surgery, and that can kind of take all of it away. But without surgery, it's kind of something that can just come back. So me putting all this together, again, this is just my read on it. This is not me like reporting or anything. I'm not giving you guys any like inside info. But this is just me putting stuff together. It kind of makes me feel like this may have been something that Cade has been dealing with for much longer than what we were led to believe. And it would kind of make sense. So I'm really happy that he's getting the surgery. I'm really happy that he decided to do this. They did say this was Cade's decision, that they presented him with everything, that they did tell him that they thought this was the best route, but ultimately it was Cade's decision, and they waited for him and let him. They did confirm also as well, along with that he went and talked to multiple other players that had dealt with this injury before to try to get the best idea about what the best route would be, so he can feel the best well-versed in this issue. So Cade did make that the final decision, but they did urge him, kind of say that this would be the best option. So I'm happy that he did that because this is not something that you want to continue to come back up at the beginning of every single season. You don't want that to happen. Another thing that Weaver confirmed for us, because I don't believe that this was completely confirmed, but he did confirm that it is a left leg stress fracture in his shin. So that it is indeed a stress fracture. I know we were wondering if it was true or not, but that Weaver did confirm that for us. Weaver also went on to say that Cade should not be, missing from the team or anything. He should still be around. It's not like he's going to be, gone from the team for a long time down in Texas for the rest of the year. No, he did say that he should be around the team. He should be rehabbing in Detroit, and you should see him on the bench at some point. He's having the surgery this week, so you may see him gone from the team for like maybe 2 weeks or something, but you should see him around is what he said. He also went on to say, again, like I said, or actually Dwayne Casey said this part. He said that Cade talked with his friends, his family, his agents, and they turned every single stone possible so they could feel like they made the best decision for himself. So Cade feels pretty confident and comfortable, apparently, with this decision. The team obviously feels very confident and comfortable with this decision. He will be out for the whole season, but it sounds like from everything that we have read, from all the info we've gotten from multiple doctors, from everything we've heard, this was the best route to go, and Cade made the right decision. Now, again, it sucks that we're not going to see him for this year, but he made the best decision for his long-term health. He is the face of the franchise. You don't need to play around with these kind of things. You need to have the bigger picture in mind. I know a lot of people want to see a good product this year. They want to have fun watching this year, but this is your prize and joy. You do not mess around with this. This is your face of the franchise. You always have the bigger picture in mind, and you do what's right for the bigger picture, and this was what was right. So I feel comfortable with this. Sucks we won't see him this year, but it was the right decision. That's all I've got for you guys today. On the next podcast episode, like I said, we will have Sham, my friend, is in the medical field. He's going to try to dive deeper into this decision to get surgery, talk about the stress fracture, all that stuff, try to give us some more info on it. So stay tuned for that podcast. That's all I've got for you guys today, though. Thank you for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review. If you want to join me for some of the watch parties that we'll be hosting during Pistons games, go in the description down below. It's over at playback.tv/Pistons Watch. You can join up on the stage, talk with me during Pistons games, watch the games with me, ask questions. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to be a part of that, go in the description down below. You can check that out. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe, everybody. Go Pistons, and peace out.